I'm Mary Lyons, and I am the Wealth Woman.
And I'm Eric Alexander from Benchmark Income Group.
And this is the Big Wealth Podcast.
Everything you've ever been taught about money is wrong.
But don't worry, we're here to help.
On this podcast, we'll use the same tools you already know to actually help set you free.
Free to do what you want with your time, with your money, and with your energy. Free to live your life the way you have dreamt about.
So we're going to talk about wealth knowledge, personal reflections, and the financial industry news of the day.
Welcome to the Big Wealth Podcast. I have to tell you that I am especially excited about our podcast today because we have a special guest with us who has absolutely changed my life. And I can't say that about very many people. So I'm gonna just start by introducing him. We have Kevin Kepple, who is both my business coach and in some ways, I think also a personal coach. But what I think is so neat about Kevin as an individual and my relationship with him, and Eric, you work with him as well, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, is that the dynamics of our relationship have changed dramatically over the past couple of years because Kevin initially came to work with us and Eric and I got to mentor him. And over time, he outgrew us and now he mentors us, right? So it's come full circle, which I think is really, really cool. But today we're going to talk a little bit about his personal journey and some of the things that happened along the way that really got him focused on living his best life, because that's what we do here at Big, right? It's all about living your best life financially and across all aspects of it. But he's also going to give us some, really in-depth things to think about so that we have action items and we have something that we can take away from today's podcast. So Eric, I know you have some questions for him.
Got 1,000 questions, and I usually pepper them at him almost weekly now for other stuff. But I kind of wanted to start at the beginning, right? Because Kevin and I have worked together for a long time now. But Kevin, as Mary mentioned, Kevin first started out with us on the financial planning side of it. And so, one of the things that I think we've talked about this, but I don't really know the full story, is like what actually got you into the planning process at the beginning. What made you want to be a financial planner?
Before you decided to get out of it.
Right. Before you decided to leave and do other cool things, right?
Yeah. That's a great question. So I was working in an industry, software sales, and I had, a really lucrative position. I made great money and I couldn't have been more unhappy. And I really didn't enjoy what I did or who I got to do it with, to be quite frank. And I was just looking for more, because money wasn't the answer. And I had a good friend who's been in the financial services industry for years and years. And he was like, I think you'd be really good as a financial advisor. I've heard of this company and I think you should go check them out. And so I just walked in the front door and like, hey, is Joe here? And Joe was, the CEO at the time. And
My
Joe
dad.
wasn't there. Yeah, Mary's dad. And Joe thought I was trying to sell him something, so he didn't call me back. And so I came back the next day and I'm like, no, I don't want to sell you anything. I want to sell things for you. I want to be a part of this, I think, but I'm not even sure what you do, to be quite honest. Right.
Right.
And, Joe, if anything, was a phenomenal speaker. Right. And, had me at hello. And so he's like, hey, let's go meet Mary. She's one of our top producers. And we walked down the hall and Mary is Mary. And I knew instantly whatever she was doing, I wanted to be a part of, because I know a champion when I see it. And I was so excited. It was the easiest yes like I've ever gotten out of my mouth. And I don't think it was less than a week or two. I don't know how long. It was quick. And I was over there with you guys.
Yeah, we didn't want to let you go. You cold called
right.
us. We didn't call you back, right? You came a second time. And I'll just tell you from the very beginning, after my dad's first real conversation with you, the conversation he had with me was, don't mess this up. We need him to come work here. So
Right.
it was mutual for sure.
Well, Joe has imported this superpower to Mary that I think Joe had. We called it the Yoda power. And so I remember walking into Joe's office too. He says, you will become a planner. You will do this. And I'm like, yes, I will. And I think Mary has that same mentality or that same superpower. She just says, you will come change other people's lives.
He did it with eloquence. I think I do it with enthusiasm, right? It's a totally different skill set.
Yeah, no doubt. So what was that journey? What was that transition like for you though? I mean, you went from software sales to, money sales. What was that like?
Sure. Besides terrifying, it was pretty exciting. And, it was actually pretty seamless because of you guys mainly, because I came in and you're like, hey, do these things. And I was like, okay, I'll do these things. And these
Right.
things worked. And you guys are, massively successful in your industry, like not just the top in the company, but the top in the industry. And that's exactly the kind of people I'm going to listen to. And, humility and coachability are the two best traits I think that, we can have. And
More talent, less ego.
yeah, absolutely.
That's
And I'm
right.
like, look, I'm always going to look for the people who are crushing it and whatever it is I'm, wanting to do. And I'm going to do what they're doing until I can, make it my own. And you guys both have completely different styles, but you both, have, similar massive results. And, Eric was like, hey, say these things. I'm like, okay. And I went out and said those things. And Mary's like, do these things. And I did those things. And it was phenomenal. I mean, I had so much success in such a difficult industry because of you guys. And, I was like, these two people are really cut from the same cloth that I am. Faith is important to them. Their family is important to them, and really helping other people and doing the right things is important to them. And they both want to grow constantly. And I'm like, man, that's, exactly who I am. That's exactly who I want to spend, my time with.
So for the first year that you were here, I mean, I just remember thinking about it, and you were so dedicated to everything that you were doing, and you just threw yourself in wholeheartedly. And no matter what goal we set for you, you were like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I think that's so unique, because there's a lot of people who you set a goal and they'll show up on Monday and you're like, well, how'd it go last week? And they haven't done it. And what really set you apart is that once the goal was set, you're like, I'm not walking in there on Monday unless I can say I actually did it. And that was always so impressive to me. And you were kind of like this tireless machine, like you were just going and going and going. And then at some point, I think it was probably towards the end of your second year with us, I started to notice that like you seemed a little tired, right? And so you're like crushing it. The numbers are good. You're killing it. Your clients love you. You're making good money. And the dynamic of our conversations really started to change at that point in time, because I've always been like from the very beginning about like living a life that's full of purpose and being excited to like wake up and go do the things you have on your plate. And I started to notice that that was changing. And so I feel like there are conversations that you had with us, but also with other people that started to change the way you were thinking. So do you want to share some of that with us?
Sure. And it was wild because like you said, I was having a great amount of success and, largely and mostly thanks to y'all. And, I remember getting a really big check one time at the time, it was the biggest check I'd ever gotten. It wasn't like a giant check on TV, like I won the Masters, but, it was a direct deposit. But
I know exactly which check you're talking about. And it was a big check.
Yeah. And I couldn't find any joy in that. I'm like, why isn't this making me happy? And I had a business coach at the time, and I talked to you guys all the time, and I know how much I love what you do and how good you are at it. I'm like, where's the disconnect here? Why am I not finding joy in this? Because I love to help people. I love working with these people. Like, what am I missing? And I realized that, a big piece of what I had been doing had become training and coaching and mentoring other people and speaking. And I realized that was where my joy was. And that every time I'd get taken away from that, I felt like part of me was missing. And while I got to do that a lot, I didn't get to do it, pretty much the whole time. And I had a coach.
Yeah, sometimes you had to sit in a room and build financial plans.
Oh man, that right there, and my fun level all-time low, right? but I had, in addition to you guys speaking into my life, I had a really good coach who kept me pretty honest. And like all great coaches, he would create friction. And he's like, tell me about the job. And I told him, and he's like, do you like it? I was like, man, I love it. And he's like, I don't think you like it even. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, when you talk about the people you work with, you're so excited, like your sale is full and you're so fired up. And then you start talking about the actual job and it looks like you shrink 4 inches and you couldn't be more unhappy. And, I don't want to admit that. And I'm like, no, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. And it's like, kind of like every conversation I have with my wife, right? Like, no, okay, you're right. And, but it really helped me look at myself honestly. And I remember I went and talked to you guys about it and Mary, and like, how do you go to tell the people that, you love and you're so grateful for, they're giving you so much, that you might be leaving, even though things are going really, really well and they've been over backwards over and over again to serve you. And so how am I supposed to do that? And I remember I was like, I don't remember too many times in my life where I've been like scared, and I was like scared. And I just remember how humble both of y'all were about it. You're like, that's awesome. You found this thing that makes you happy. Like, of course we're sad you're leaving. Like, but we want you to be happy. And I was so grateful that I had people like that in my life that cared that much about what I wanted. And that's what I loved about y'all. And I think that was the most attractive thing that brought me in the first place, was you care more about other people's success than your own. And that's why you two are both massively successful. And so, like, whatever it is you're doing, I always want to be a part of it. Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I think that's I mean, I do remember having that conversation, and I'll if I'm totally honest, when you were, I wasn't surprised, right, that it happened, but I remember having this moment of just like really intense disappointment, but then at the same time, like this really intense feeling of like, I am so excited for you that you're like taking the steps on these journeys, right, and on this journey. And the disappointment was all about me and how it impacted me, right? And then the joy was all about knowing that you were going to get to do something that would change your life, right? And when I weighed which of those was more important, that joy is just like, it was so much more powerful. And I was like, how could I have any reaction other than like, you found something that you're excited about and you get to spend all your time doing it. I mean, that's what all the financial advice is for me, the way working with clients and all that. Like, if I have that kind of joy in my life and someone else has even a chance of it with the connection to what they're doing on a daily basis, how could I keep them away from that? I mean, it's like, go run, go faster, like get out of here and go do it. Right. And then there's that piece where you're like, but I want you to know, I'm also really sad that you're leaving, but oh my God, I'm excited for you. And it's sort of like, it felt like almost bipolar, right? Where you're like, I feel both of these things so intensely. But I think your journey has been so cool to watch. And over the years, as we've seen you grow, when you came back and you said, hey, look, I've been through all this training, I've learned all these things, and I'm going to go out on my own. My first thought was, oh my God, I'm so excited. Will you coach me? Because I got to see your journey. And, you asked me a couple of questions at the beginning of 2020, because I think we started working together roughly around like the January, February timeframe. So it was pre-COVID. And it took me a while to answer some of those questions, but the questions that you asked me fundamentally changed the course of my life, right, over the past year. So what you asked me was, what do you want and why do you want it? So can you talk a little bit about those questions and, why you asked them in the first place and what they're meant to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those two simple questions changed my life in every single area, because first and foremost, if I don't know what I want, it makes it really hard to know what action to take. And if I don't know what I want, like, how will I know when I get it? And the biggest detrimental byproduct of not knowing what you want is drifting. I do a little bit of this, I do a little bit of that, but I don't ever get to win because I'm not passionate. I'm not bought in on anything. So as soon as it gets hard and I get resistance, I'll just stop. And then, that story in your head kicks in, that not enough and all that other stuff that's just not true. And so first and foremost, what do I want? Whether it's, professionally, financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, I need to be, crystal clear on what I want, because that eliminates hyperactivity, which is all ego, right? And then the why, right? Because the why is why is this important to me? Why should I care? Well, and that's what's going to get me out of bed on the days that are hard. That's my purpose, right? And what people do is they get into trouble because they always try to add in the third component, right? Well, this is what I want. This is why I want it. This is how I'm going to do it. And then it's really dangerous when they do it that way, because you just created an expectation, right? An expectation gives you one way to win. If I say, this is how I'm going to do it, and I expect it to come out this way, if I do it that way, there's no win, because that's what I expected. And if I don't, I failed. And you've also eliminated really any other options, because you're so focused on this one thing, you become myopic and you could miss out on all this other stuff on the periphery. And until we're in action, we don't get feedback. And so we may or may not know, if we're headed the right way. But, whenever you try to insist on the how, it really gives away a lot of your power. And then the other way that how gets in people's way is they're like, well, this is what I want. This is why I want it. I just can't see how it's going to happen. Like, of course you can't see how it's going to happen, because you've never done it before,
Right.
But Viktor Frankl, in his fantastic book, Man's Search for Meaning, right? He said, when your why is big enough, the how will emerge. And I'm like, man, that's such a great point. Figure out what you want and why you want it, start taking action. And, as long as you're humble enough to, receive the feedback without a story attached, that's the fastest way to create clarity. That's the fastest way to create momentum. And that's the fastest way to like get out of your own way and just go as fast as you can towards whatever it is you desire.
I think
Yeah,
that,
but
oh, go ahead, Eric.
no, I think that's brilliant though, because Kevin and I work together, and that's the first time I've heard that particular story. And I'm like, oh crap! If I wasn't looking at the camera, I got to write that down. But that's great. I mean, I think that idea of resistance to the how, and it's almost that idea from the Stoics of don't judge the outcome, don't have a lack of expectation around the outcome, right? And I think the how is outcome based, not purpose based, not future based, right? This is why I want this thing. And I think that's brilliant from that idea of stop judging the path, because if you've never walked the path, you don't know what it's supposed to look like. And so I just think that's particularly brilliant. So well
and I think the comment that you made about feedback and being open to feedback is so important, because when you're attached to this is how I'm going to do it, when other opportunities emerge, you aren't even open to them, and they could be better opportunities. And I find that in my life, for the duration of my career, when I try and script and control how something is going to go, and that's true in career, that's true in relationships, that's true in every aspect of my life. When I try and script how something is going to go, it never goes well for me. But when I am open to whatever is kind of coming my way, and the feedback and the opportunity that shows up when it shows up, things are always easier, right? I'm not going to say they're easy all the time, but they are easier. And I find that there's more joy in those decisions as well. And, when you asked me those questions last year, I had this moment where I felt a little bit like a hypocrite, because I spend so much time asking my clients, if money was no object, how would your life be different? What would you really be doing if you weren't worried about that? And when you ask me those questions, I realized that it has been a very, very long time since I asked myself those same questions. And so I had this sort of like almost like a sinking spell where I'm like, oh my gosh, Mary, like, how can you tell other people this is so important when you aren't asking yourself those questions? And, every time I would come back to you and I'd be like, I want this. Your question was why? And I'd be like, because of this reason. And you'd be like, that's not it. Why? And you would keep asking why. And I was like, this is annoying. We've been asking the same question for 3 weeks, and I keep giving you answers and you keep telling me they're the wrong answer, right? And so I was like, I'm going to have to go into like a deep meditation and pray about this and like really figure this out, because clearly I'm not being totally authentic and genuine if every time I say it, you're like, no, why? Right. And the deeper I went into that, as you kept asking those questions, the more obvious it became to me that what I was really after was that feeling of peace, right? Because with peace, everything is, even when everything is wrong, if you're at peace with it, everything is actually right with the world. And then you get into this space of like creation and joy and all of these really beautiful things. And it wasn't, if you had let me off the hook with my answers, I wouldn't have gotten there, right? And understanding that why was almost more important than the what in the first place, because it's what keeps me going even when things are difficult. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. It's the basis of the how, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, like the what is the what, right? But the why is how you're getting the what sometimes, that's what's going to pull me to it. And I think it's so important that you make the leap from knowing to understanding too, because, so many people, it's like, do you know what you want? And they're like, yeah, I know what I want. I'm like, cool, tell me. And they give you this really long answer with no substance. I'm like, okay, if you can't explain something simply to somebody, then you don't understand it yourself. Right. And so like, first and foremost, I need to make the leap from knowing to understanding, because I know a tremendous amount of things, but I understand, a modicum, a very small amount, right? Like I know that Mary has 2 children, and I'm pretty sure Mary wouldn't let me deliver a third if she happened to have one, right? Because I don't understand that process. I haven't been through years of training.
Anyway. That's a moot point.
Okay. Well, we'll just leave that option open then, just in case. Maybe I'll get that degree online or whatever, right? I'm sure that's a thing.
They just give you a catcher's mitt, just so you know. It's easy.
And some hot water and towels. That's all it takes.
That's
I saw it on the Hulk when I was a kid.
I think like going back to that bit about the peace, what's really been helpful about that too is that it has given me almost like a metric to measure my decisions by. So now, instead of being like, well, I want this thing and it's just impulsive, my question always goes back to, is this going to give me more peace or less peace? And sometimes the answer is it might give me a little bit less peace in the short run, but in the long run, it's going to create a lot more peace. And then sometimes I look at it and I can say, like, this isn't going to introduce peace into my life anywhere. Like, this is a totally wrong way of looking at things. And that framework has made it a lot easier for me to make sometimes what appear to be very difficult decisions. And one of the decisions that I had to make very early on was, am I going to stay in the company that I helped build with my dad that we eventually sold, or is it time for me to go out on my own? And one of those was very safe because I was already doing it, right? But from a perspective of peace, I didn't have the peace that went along with that because I wasn't building something that was true to my vision. I was doing something I was very good at. I was still helping people, but I had a bigger vision. And when I thought about like, what is going to bring me more, like at the end of the day, am I going to come home and be like, whew, I did it. Like, I did what I was supposed to do. I'm moving in that right direction. And it became clear to me after a lot of conversation with you that it was time for me to launch my own company. Right. And I think that framework is really what made that possible for me to make a decision that I had been talking about for years.
Yeah, for at least 2 or 3 for me. Like, watching you go through that process was pretty entertaining.
Right.
And entertaining from a sort of sadistic standpoint, but it's like, which Mary am I going to get today, right? Am I going to get we're just going to head down and do it, or we're going to launch on our own? And some days it was different, right? It was kind of interesting watching that process.
Well, hopefully the decision has given you more peace too, because you don't have to deal with those conversations
right.
either.
But I think watching your process too, Kevin, and yours and I process, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, is just because you tell me something, and I was thinking about this through Mary, right? Just because you tell me something doesn't mean I'm going to pick up on it. Like you and I have this sort of conversation around what was the book, Power versus Focus, or Power versus Force. Power versus Force, right? And you show me that slide 400 times, and I'm like, great, got it. Intellectually, I get it, right? Intellectually, Mary knew the decision a long time ago, but she didn't understand it. It's the what and the why, right? She didn't understand the why behind it. And so I think sometimes it just takes a bit. Like, I think sometimes you just need to kind of futz around in the muck and the mire until you kind of get through it. You can't shorten the cycle. Like, it takes as long as it takes.
Yeah, I would agree that you have to, constantly go back and make new decisions about who you are and what you want, because so many people, like myself included in the past, make this static decision about the way we feel about, this thing, this person, this circumstance. And that's not the world we live in. The guarantee we get is that the life will change, the world will change, right? And all great companies are innovative. And as humans, we have to be the same. And if I make this decision, like, when I work with people like, oh, I'm just not a reader. Like, did you not learn that in kindergarten or whenever you learned that? Like, what do you mean you're not a reader? Like, well, I just don't like to read. I'm like, okay, well, make a new decision, because that doesn't support growth if that's what you truly want. Always the easy example I use with a lot of people. It's like, my beautiful wife made the decision a long time ago that I'm not a very good driver, and she proves herself right every time we ride in the car together. But hey, you know what? Kettle, it's the pot.
Wait. Who proves her right? Who?
I don't know. I have the same decision. So Kettle, it's the pot. I'm black too, right? Like I'm, when I get in her Jeep, I'm like, oh my God, I pray for everybody on the road. Just get out of the way, people. We're coming through. No, she's actually a really great driver. I just like to give her the business a little bit. I'm definitely an overachiever with that one. So,
well, I want to go back to this idea that you just brought up right now about creation, right? Like, you use the word creating and creation, and I think that's such a powerful word, right? Because I tend to attach to growth and improvement, but I think all of that really comes back to, as human beings, we have this really cool ability to create, and we seem to have a lot of conversations about this. And I know Eric and I talk about this, so I'm going to make the assumption that you guys talk about this too.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of creation in someone's life?
Yeah, absolutely. This one idea right here, Man, it could change your life if you'll just own it. Because if you think about it, right, we really get two options in every instance we're in, whether it's just we're sitting alone thinking, we're talking to somebody, whatever. It's like we get the decision to either create our reality or we get the option to react to someone else's creation. And that's just survival. That's just hanging on. And that's ego. And that's control. And that's when you're looking for loss, less or never. What am I going to lose? What am I going to have less of? What am I never going to get? And then you start trying to manipulate situations and people, and what's the fastest way to get someone not to do it? Try to make them do it, right? But it's about
Right.
cooperation, not competition. And cooperation starts with creation, right? We were brought here in creation, and the most powerful place that I can spend my time is in creation, because in creation I'm creating the life I want to live in only the way that I can with my unique skill set, creating more for other people, creating more of myself, because the whole point in life, right, is to continually grow as much as we can so that we can give more, right? And it's beautiful when you're in that creation space, creating more of yourself to give to others. It's very hard to focus on yourself at the same time. And so
Right.
it's very powerful, because things get really hard when you start worrying about what's in it for me, right? Because me's made
Right.
up anyways. Like no one else in the world can see your version of me, right? That's only your version. However many people in the world know you, that's how many versions of me there are out there, right? And so we fight so hard for this like fairy tale that we've made up. And if you don't agree with me like 100%, then you're wrong. And like never have I ever been 100% right about anything. And so if I can just stay in creation, it's such an easy place to live, because even if I don't like what's currently being presented to me, then I'm going to work to create something different. And it's like the one thing that's crucial in there, like things don't need to be fixed. People don't need to be fixed. They need to be understood. And that's the difference, right? And that's what you get in creation. You get to understand yourself and understand other people and understand situations. And it doesn't mean every day you're sliding down a rainbow, petting a puppy on the way to work at the Unicorn Ranch, but you're like, hey, what's up? I'm the head horn shiner and the master of glitter around here. But but you know what? When you're in that space of
Get that
creation,
job.
it's just, yeah. I mean, it doesn't pay much, but it's really pretty around there.
But the kids like it.
Yeah, the kiddies love it. Yeah,
Can I pull that back for just a second?
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you just gave us so much in such a short period of time here. But
Right.
I think this idea of understanding as a part of creation is so crucial. And I'm actually going to pull this back to financial advice here for just a second, because I think this is so key. I think there is, it goes back to your focus on me and that kind of stuff, as opposed to creating. What I have found is that, there's a lot of ego, and there's also a lot of shame that shows up in financial conversations on a pretty regular basis. Ego,
Right.
because oh yeah, I'm killing it, I've arrived. And then the humility's gone and the ability to learn disappears with it. Right. And then on the shame side, I should be in a different place. I should be further along than I am. I should know more than I do. Right. And both of those things prevent creation, growth, learning, all of the positivity. Right.
Right.
And I think as advisors, one of the things that is so key that seems to be missing from some of the interpersonal training and just training in general that happens is that our job as advisors is really to meet our clients wherever they are on their journey, and then to encourage and facilitate their ability to take the next steps so that they can create a life that they are truly excited to live. Right? Because the money, and I say this a lot, but the money is just a tool, and it is a tool that is meant to help you create the life that you're actually excited about. And I feel like there are so many people who end up living a life that is based on default, right? As opposed to a life that is based on their own design, right? And this goes to not the how of where I'm going to get there, but again, having that clarity for what do I want and why do I want it, and then beginning to make decisions through that filter that design a life and create a life that you're actually excited about. And when we first started talking about having you on as a guest, the thing that excited me the most is that there's an alignment between the way we view things from a financial perspective and trying to build that life and create that life you're excited about. And then everything that you're doing, both on the business side and the personal side, to help people, get rid of the thoughts that aren't serving them so that they can take those steps. And I know for me and our working together, that has been one of the most powerful and impactful ideas that you've given me, is that if a thought isn't serving you, you can you can lose it on purpose, right? Like you
Yeah.
can get rid of that thought.
Just
Uh,
because it's there doesn't mean it's real or valid, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that paradigm is so cool. And it has resulted in like jokes even within the office, where when a thought comes out that's not helpful, like I'll walk around and I'll just say things like, shut up, Linda, because that's the alternate personality that is putting that thought out there and I'm rejecting it. Right. And I mean, at this point, people are probably like, who's she talking to?
And
But
who the heck is Linda? When did she start working here? Right.
yeah, so it's the negative alter ego, right? That is putting out all of those fears, right? That can prevent you from living in that space of creation. So do you have any tips for how people can get rid of some of those fears and get rid of those thoughts or focus more on the ones that are positive?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to bring more courage into your life, it's not the absence of fear, it's action in spite of fear. So just like whatever the fear is coming from, just take the first step. And generally that eliminates a lot of the focus on yourself, which will take away a lot of the fear. And man, if nothing else, even if you don't know what to do, you'll figure out one more way not to do it, right? If nothing else. And I
Right.
think that's so powerful because again, until I'm in action, I have no idea like what I'm really doing. I can, get paralysis by analysis and study for 20 years, but if I don't ever take the bar exam, I'll never be a lawyer, right? And I got to pull the trigger eventually. And the cool thing is, like, the more in creation you live, like, the more of you you're going to find, right? Like what he blessed you with. And there's only one of you. And that's the whole genius, right? And it's about being present, because in the present moment is the only place that you can ever create anything. Because never have I ever met anybody from the past or the future, right? Except for my friend in high school, Doc Brown, who used to have a DeLorean that would take me places. Besides that, but no,
That
there's
one
no
guy.
past, right? And if we stay in the past too much with our mind, but our body's present, we're disconnected. We cannot connect with the person sitting across from us because we can't give what we don't have. And our reward for staying stuck in the past is depression. And if I think about what might be in the future too much, that creates anxiety because the future doesn't exist either. The future is simply a series of present moments. And so I need to stay present. How do I stay present? Like you mentioned meditation, but like mindfulness is great. Breathe in, breathe out, focus on your breath. You can't entertain two simultaneous thoughts. Like it's impossible. You might get two butted up against each other, but you can't have two at the same time on top of each other. And when you focus on your breath, you can't not be present because the breath is always present. And so staying in the present moment and understanding what it feels like when I'm not in the present moment and what it generally feels like, it feels really uncomfortable when you leave the present moment because again, you're focused on yourself and it's such a dangerous place to be. What I really want when I'm with other people is I want to connect on a human level because I'm a human being. The two most important things in any culture, safety and connection. Because if I don't feel connected, I definitely don't feel safe. And if I'm not safe, I'm not connected. If I'm not connected, I don't really care. And until people care, they're not going to, move the way you want them to move. They're not going to hear the things you want them to hear. And that's the thing. Like I loved bringing people, into personal economics group whenever we work together because of the way both of y'all show up. You don't have a one size fits all. People come in and tell you what they want. Like, yeah, that's great, but we're doing this. Like, no, you're like, you listen to them as a person, even though y'all been doing this at an extremely high level for a long time, you value them and work to understand. And you show them like, hey, like we're real people too. And we're real smart on top of that. And both of y'all have that cool combination, right? Huge hearts, huge brains. And man, it's just such a powerful thing because when y'all use those so well and y'all are just like in the moment with people doing life in the arena, rolling with the punches, so to speak.
Right.
And it's the way it should be.
And I think that's why we appreciate you too, right? It's kindred spirits right there. It's that it really
Right.
is about helping people have the best and making that authentic connection with other human beings. So I have one more big question for you.
Yeah, and I've got one as well, but
Oh, well, then you
Okay.
ask your question first because mine's more of a wrap-up question to make sure
oh,
I get
okay.
anything.
Well, and before I ask my questions, one of my favorite quotes is by a guy named Ray Dalio, and I'm probably butchering his last name, but he said he once said, "The things we strive for are just the bait. The struggle to get them with the people we care about gives us the personal evolution and the meaningful relationships that are the real reward." And it's one of those things that I keep thinking through, especially as we worked together in the past, and as we're working with clients, is like it is the hardest part of the job and the most meaningful part of the job is sort of watching these people walk through that path but the ability to go do it with the people that I love that are around me, that I get to like experience joy with, kind of make it okay too, right? It's what keeps you coming back to the gig, even when the bad days are there, is because you're in that creation, and it's creation community, like you were talking about, right? It's not just creation, it's I get to create, and I'm around other people that are trying to do it at a high level as well. And to me, that's that part of working with you on that side of it that's so cool.
So Eric, to that point, you were talking about a book that you're reading earlier today called The Archer, and you mentioned something about the importance of allies, and I think that dovetails. Do you mind kind of adding to that a little bit?
Yeah, and so as Kevin and I joked about that book, it's like 130 pages long. I finished it in like 30 minutes, and now I need to go back page by page. So I'm Paolo, or however I say your name. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your book, but I'll give you the concept on allies as I saw it. But his theory on allies was, it's not just meeting other people in your industry and sort of working together. It's searching out for people that are doing great things. And when people are searching out and doing great things, they're always on the look. They're always on the search for, how are other people doing things well, and how can I get better and learn from them? Even if they're not in my industry, even if I have no idea how to be a butcher, candlestick maker, or whatever his phrase was, right? But even if they're not in my industry, they're learning how to be excellent. And how do I surround myself with other people that are trying to be excellent? And what can I learn from them? Which I thought was cool. And you read the book like 5 minutes before I read it and told me about it. So Kevin may have a better explanation of that than I did, but
I thought that was brilliant. Like, I love listening to the way you unpack stuff, because you're like, I get to see what the inside of a computer looks like, or hear what it looks like, whenever you talk. I'm always like, yeah, what he said. Man, iron sharpens iron.
Right.
That book's really great. It's you were right on the name. It's Paolo Coelho. I don't know if that's how you say his last name, but he wrote The Alchemist, which most people know. But it's such a cool book for so many different reasons. I love the one about allies, right? Like, because Steve Jobs said it best. Like, I don't hire smart people so I can tell them what to do. I hire them so they can tell me what to do. And like that's why I'm always around you guys. Like, hey, what's up? What are y'all doing? Like, because I know y'all are doing big things, and I know you're doing it from a place of love, and I know you're in creation. Like, even when things aren't going your way, you're still pointed forward, onwards and upwards. And that's who I be, right? And that's who I want to be around. And I'm really grateful for the example. And one of the biggest, like, the genesis of The Archer to me is like, it's not about doing more, it's about being more. Who do I need to become to create this result that I desire?
Right. Yeah, and constantly sort of sharpening that process, right? And sort of becoming better. And the one question I kept thinking through as I was thinking about this conversation today, and this is what I was thinking about earlier, Mary, was I know as a coach, because I think Mary and I are somewhat sort of financial coaches, but our running joke is half of our job is money, the other half is sort of marriage counseling. But I think a lot of that comes with sort of personal coaching. There's some days where I wish I could just implant in the client, or in the person I'm talking to with, like, an idea that could help them. Like, if I could just implant this and get you to understand it, your whole life would be better. But I can't always create the vision for them. So from your experience, from your coaching side of it, is there an idea that you wish you could, like, pull people aside, open their brain, and put this in there, and that that would change their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the idea of, owning your uniqueness and stepping into your genius, because when you're in competition, you're striving to be like somebody else, and you're never going to be like anyone else. You're going to be a less, colorful version of them, right? And so creativity strives for that uniqueness. And so what's the common denominator between all highly successful people? They own their genius, right? Both of y'all own your genius. Eric, never do I see you acting like Mary. Mary, I never see you act like
Thank
Eric.
goodness. Thank goodness.
But that's the whole genius, right? You get more by being more of yourself, right? It's not about doing more, it's about being more. And so how do I be more? I develop the skills he gave me. And it's the same thing. I have a certification from Gallup and Strength Finders, and I've coached thousands of people for thousands of hours with this tool, done workshops, one-on-one coaching. And every time I go back to it, I taught like a training the other night with it. And I learned like 3 new things. And after thousands of hours, because I can see more now. And so, making new decisions about what we can and can't do, and just understanding that the fastest way to more is developing yourself. And so many people try to chase the things externally they think are going to bring them joy. They're going to bring them success. And that's not how it works. You create success and happiness from the inside out, and you attract the things you want to you. That's how you create more power.
So I think that's incredibly powerful. So here's my last question. And we can go down the StrengthsFinder route if you want to, because I think there's probably a lot of people listening to this that aren't really sure what their strengths are, right? Sure. They don't know, because I think sometimes people try to be things that they aren't because other people place expectations on them. And so sometimes they do that for so long that they forget what their strengths are. And I think that could be interesting. But if I think about our conversation, I mean, we've kind of been all over the place with some really deep information, I think. But is there anything that we didn't cover, or anything that you want to add that you think is really important to kind of close this out with?
Yeah, I think StrengthsFinder is a great place to go. StrengthsFinder is actually rebranded like 6 months ago, I think, to Clifton Strengths, which is the same exact assessment, just different name. But that, like, I've taken a ton of different assessments, and there's a lot of really good ones out there. But I really like StrengthsFinders the most, for me personally, because it identifies your natural talents, right? It's not a complete portrait of your character. It's like, hey, here's what you naturally do well. And it really gave me permission for the first time not to try to be good at everything and try, right? I wasn't good at everything, but trying to be good at everything. And it gave me permission not to feel bad about the fact that I wasn't good at everything. I'm like, man, like, I'm a financial planner. I should be good at Excel. And like, I am not good at Excel. And like,
Excel is your friend, Kevin. Excel.
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, Eric, can you tell me how to do this? By tell me how to do it, I mean, will you do it for me?
How do I paint this fence? Just show me again.
Yeah, the little Tom Sawyer, and I'll eat this apple. But Eric's very kind and generous with his time. But man, just using a tool like StrengthsFinder as a step into your genius is so powerful. And it's really powerful, when you get the people around you to take it as well. Because, my wife and I have 8 of the same top 10 strengths, but the 2 that are different make us so different. Like, she's got restorative as a strength, and God bless her. Like, she can't watch a TV show without telling me the end, right? Even if she hadn't seen it, like, she's always got to figure out close the loop, right? But she's phenomenal at figuring things out. Like, thank God for her. Like, I'd never have my cell phone, my car keys, or my wallet if it wasn't for her, because she's so good at finding things because of that strength, so just understanding who you are and using that to serve the world. That's the secret.
I love that. So real quick, just where you can find Eric and myself, if you are looking for me specifically, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook at The Wealth Woman. Eric, where can they find you?
At Economics with Eric. So on Instagram and Facebook as well.
And for everybody who is just as blown away by Kevin as we are, Kevin, where can they find you?
Sure. They can go to my Facebook, Kevin Kepple Coaching, or I'm on the grams on Instagram at Kevin Kepple.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate all of your insight. This is the conclusion of today's Big Wealth Podcast. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, guys.